Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jeanne Thill, and on today's show, we're visiting with Bishop Robert Pipta, Eparchy of Parma, Ohio, about the Byzantine Catholic outreach of Iowa.
Looking forward to a very lively exchange. And we think, and this is not something ecumenical. This is within the household of faith. And our brothers and sisters in the Byzantine tradition and how their footprint in the Diocese of Des Moines and beyond the state of Iowa. So it should be very lively. But as we move into March, the sounds of basketball bouncing and the madness increases, but different tributaries of the Spirit also making their way. The Forge event last weekend, approximately 1,200 men, various generations, but all looking for Jesus and being called to greater discipleship to become more men in Christ, and acknowledging where maybe they've not realized their vocation into the fullness. And so God's continual call there is a sign of hope and encouragement for them and for all of us. Then I was fortunate to be at Our Lady's Immaculate Heart in Ankeny on Sunday night. Father James Ahankara and the community there, the Amazing Grace Hour. And so I had a chance to give a little personal witness, but of course it's the presence of our Eucharistic Lord in adoration. And this past week, where St. Catherine Drexel, noted educator, we finished Black History Month in February, but she was so pivotal in bringing Christ to African Americans, other Native peoples, and the way in which she did that. And, hearing that call, "Why not you?" said the Pope to her, and she responded. So Catherine Drexel's feast day on Tuesday was with the St. Anthony School community. We made a visit along with our Catholic Schools office. Wednesday at Sacred Heart in West Des Moines, a chance to celebrate the Mass with them, and then to join our own diocesan pastoral staff on their day of reflection and service. So again, we made a plug last week, but Shamrocks and Shenanigans tonight at Glen Oaks. And they, unlike the Forge Conference, do accept walk-ins. So people looking for a Saturday night on the town, starting about 6 p.m., but you can come anytime, would be a most worthy way to come together. So the basketball is the Girls State Tournament. We know the Dowling Maroon women were in the tournament. We have to kind of be circumspect about how they fared and all that.
But kudos to making the state tournament.
That itself is more than a feather in their cap. It's a great achievement, and the vicious competition that's present even in the Central Iowa Metropolitan League and the teams that are there. And then the boys are coming together. And then, of course, we turn our attention to the older groups in March Madness and all that we're about. But we don't allow this to deflect from our focus in who we are about. I'm kind of looking forward to downloading the conferences that Bishop Eric Varden of Trondheim, Norway, gave to the papal household, Pope Leo.
Yeah, I saw that.
Eric Varden, a Trappist monk, but called to be a diocesan bishop in that way, and so the unique blending of his vocations. But he calls us to look in all humility, to find our grounding again, to realize this great yearning that we have to transcend ourselves, to realize the perfection that our Heavenly Father is perfect, is not something like we kind of set this gritty, sweated moral standard for ourselves, but that this interior capacity and potential that God has had to become fully human in every respect. And this is found, obviously, in relationship with God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and the communion that revolves around them in the church. And so I think we all take stock. Love offering the sacrament of reconciliation. The men last week at Forge were certainly availing themselves of the sacrament. I was fortunate to go to my own confessor this past week, and will look to do so again before Easter arrives. And so it's a wonderful blessing. We encourage people, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be seen for who you are. The gaze of the Father's face upon you in the person of Jesus, who is the one who absolves by the power of his blood, the power of the cross. And so that most beautiful moment where we become the men and women that we're called to be, always children of God, held in the Father's embrace.
Well, stay with us, folks. When we come back, we'll be visiting with Bishop Robert Pipta, Eparchy of Parma, Ohio, talking about the Byzantine Catholic Outreach of Iowa. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with Bishop Robert Pipta of the Eparchy of Parma, Ohio. We're talking about the Byzantine Catholic Outreach of Iowa.
Thank you for gracing us, Bishop Pipta, with your time, and look forward to it. I have been privileged to have a few exchanges with you at some of our bishops' meetings and other conferences and things, so I feel I have a rapport with you already. So making it personal, did you ever envision you would be the eparch, the Bishop of Parma, Ohio?
I most certainly did not. Like most of my assignments since I was ordained to major orders, I've really had very, very little choice in the matter. So no, this was not what I was looking to in my life as a priest, and certainly the news came to me as a great surprise.
We happen to know that you're a native Californian. Was it a pretty faith-filled household that you grew up with, where the thoughts of the priesthood were there from the outset, or was this something that kind of evolved at a certain point in your life?
Thank you for asking. Yes, I was blessed with, and he is still alive, my father, who has, as far as I know, always been very, very serious about his faith life. The Pipta side of the family, so my father's father and the generation of Piptas have been Byzantine Catholic, or in Europe, our family is from what is now a very eastern part of Slovakia would be Greek Catholic for many, many generations. And this was important to my father growing up and into his adulthood and into his married life. My father and mother divorced when I was in first grade. And my mother is now deceased, and since then my father has remarried. And he married a very devout Roman Catholic, but the condition was he's going to remain steadfast in his Byzantine Catholic observance of the faith. And his wife, her name is Rita, has embraced that beautifully, and is herself now what I would call a very devout and very aware Byzantine Catholic. And my father raised my sister and I after the divorce, and I was very young. I can't remember a lot of that, but perhaps it was that reality that he would now on his own be raising me and raising my sister, that he recommitted himself to life in the church. And at a very young age, I started serving at the altar, and he actually became very involved in singing, cantoring, liturgical music. And only about 5 years ago did he actually retire from that. So yes,
that takes a certain stamina in the Divine Liturgy, does it not, to be a cantor? I mean, that's
it does.
Yeah,
it does indeed. And he actually was encouraged by our parish priest at the time to do some more study into music. And he took music theory classes. He got involved in choir, and he took that seriously. And that did help him build up that stamina and a greater knowledge of music itself, and sight reading, and even some setting of liturgical text to our chant tradition.
Which is almost ethereal at times, as I have been privileged to participate or witness of the Divine Liturgy and various Eastern traditions. So just on that personal level, though, for some people, the experience of divorce really provokes a kind of faith crisis, their trust in the most fundamental relationship that orders their world, and then the God image that follows from that, father, mother, there. But it sounds like your father really kind of transcended that and prevented that kind of maybe rupture for you.
Indeed. And I must admit, it's only as I have matured in my adulthood. So even in spiritual direction, when I was a seminarian, and since then, that I actually have become more aware of exactly what you're saying, and that indeed my father in his own spiritual life, but also in his strength as a person, and also as I've come to know, his ability to reach out for help. And very often this help came from fellow parishioners and women in the parish who could especially help with my sister. Yes, I came to see exactly what you're describing, and I've only grown in appreciation of the kind of father he has been to me, even in more recent years.
Beautiful, and the graces that God, and then we have to be humble and open to allowing these things to be part of our, and naming where they might be present. California, talk about diversity. So the Byzantine tradition, one of many, many different spiritual religious traditions, and in particular, the Ruthenian Rite, is that, am I locating that correctly? You talked about the Greek Catholic influence as well. How could you, for our listeners, kind of talk about where that's situated in the Uniate churches and kind of help us get a kind of taxonomy, if you will?
Certainly. In Europe, those churches that, after the Great Schism in the 11th century, had what we might call gone into orthodoxy, or there was a separation between the Patriarch of Constantinople and the Pope of Rome. The church is in communion with those patriarchs separated from Rome, we typically call Orthodox. And at certain periods in history, while there is evidence of some of the Eastern churches that never severed ties with Rome, most, if not all of those of the Byzantine tradition did. And then some of the Orthodox of the Byzantine tradition, sometimes we know them today as Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox, but some within that particular church did return to union with the Catholic Church and the Pope of Rome at different points in history. So our particular Ruthenian heritage is those who reunited with the Church of Rome in the 17th century and come from what today, because national boundaries have changed drastically through the world wars, but what today is southern Poland and very west Ukraine and eastern Slovakia, eastern Hungary, and northern Romania. That particular area, which if you look on a map, you'll see the Carpathian mountain range. That particular area is where the ancestry of our particular church came from. And so the general designation given for the Eastern Catholics in that area is Ruthenian. It's a Latin word that really is meant to stand for Russen. And in America today, there are actually two jurisdictions connected to that heritage. One would be the Byzantine Ruthenians, with a metropolitan archbishop in Pittsburgh, and then three other eparchies, one Passaic, one Phoenix, and then, as you said, I'm the Bishop of Parma. And then the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church also has a metropolitan with an archeparchy and then three other eparchies in this country. And so, yes, we can use as a general term Eastern Catholics that follow the Byzantine Rite or the Byzantine ritual, but then there are particular churches and particular jurisdictions. And of the Byzantine tradition in America, not only do the Ukrainians and Ruthenians have bishops, the Melkites have a bishop, and the Romanians have a bishop. And then there are all the non-Byzantine Eastern Catholic churches in the country. So when we use the word rite, we're typically referring solely to liturgical ritual. So we could say the Eastern Catholics that follow the Byzantine Rite or are connected to the Byzantine liturgical ritual. But then there are various particular churches, or what canon law calls a church sui juris, that make use of this Byzantine liturgical, spiritual, even theological tradition. And so the Byzantine Ruthenians constitute one of those. And in America, we simply call ourselves Byzantine Catholic.
Well, Bishop, I have a question for you. As a regular run-of-the-mill Catholic, it's like I'm listening, I'm absorbing what you're talking about, the structure and the organization, but I'm like, well, can I go to that church? How is that different? I mean, are they really Catholic? It's like, yes, they really are, but can we go? Can we visit them and count that as our Sunday obligation and all those kinds of things that we grew up with?
Sure, it's a great question, Jeanne. Thank you for asking. And the question is answered with yes indeed. And in a way, it's even encouraged for all Catholics to get to know the ritual churches within Catholicism that are not their own. So it's very good for Roman Catholics, at least for a basic experience, to visit a Byzantine Catholic church or another Eastern Catholic church. And yes, as long as that Catholic is properly predisposed to partake of the Divine Eucharist in the Roman Catholic Church, then very much so is that person also permitted, and it would fulfill obligation, as you say, to participate in the liturgy and to receive the Divine Eucharist in any Eastern Catholic Church. And it is a good question, and it's important to answer it clearly, because one sense when coming to a Byzantine Catholic liturgy is, this isn't what I'm used to at all. This actually, I have a little familiarity with the Greek Orthodox or the Russian Orthodox, or I've seen movies or I've done some study. No, this is Orthodox. But very clearly, it's easier to do if the liturgy's in English. And in our Eparchy of Parma, our liturgical services are in English. It's very clear once we get a few moments into the Divine Liturgy and the litany that we remember our Holy Father, Leo, Pope of Rome. So we actually, in a typical Byzantine Divine Liturgy, make mention of the name of the Pope of Rome several times. And if I recall, in the Roman Catholic Mass, I think he's mentioned once. Correct. So it's clear that yes, we are in communion with the Pope of Rome. We are a Catholic Church. Typically, like is the case with myself, bishops are appointed in Eastern Catholic churches by the Pope of Rome, and indeed, Roman Catholics are able to fulfill their obligation to worship in any Eastern Catholic church.
Eminently clear answer there.
Thank you,
Bishop Pipta. The proximity of the Archieparchy of Pittsburgh and then Parma geographically, but your territory really does look west, does it not? Hence, Iowa is within the territory that you're called to proclaim the gospel.
Yes, when I look at the four Ruthenian eparchies, one of which is an archeparchy, we're actually, it seems when I look on a map, we're actually the smallest geographically, and we're 12 states. You're correct. We're basically where I am in Ohio, in the Cleveland area. That's where our cathedral is in Parma, as you said, and then we go westward to North Dakota, South Dakota, to Nebraska and Kansas, and so yes, Iowa is very much in our territory, and I have a very clear vision that we need to not forget, firstly, those who are canonically Byzantine Ruthenian. So every Catholic canonically belongs to a particular church. Most Catholics are belonging to the Latin Catholic Church. And though there are canonical Byzantine Catholics, and first and foremost, I have to be responsible for them. and try to, whether it's through a Roman Catholic priest with bi-ritual faculties or sending out a priest to serve for many, many years in the Cleveland area in a huge, very prospering parish, as I did to Iowa, bring his gifts out to address the Byzantine Catholic spiritual needs in these what sometimes are called outlying areas of the eparchy, but in my mind are all of equal importance, whether the community is near a big city like Chicago or Detroit or Cleveland, or in Iowa or in Kansas or in Nebraska. I need to do my very best to serve our faithful there.
Well, you've set the stage well for just as we move into our break to introduce the person of Father Bruce Reby, who's the person that you've selected to be part of the St. Andrew of Crete outreach to Iowa, a person very familiar and much beloved to me and respected. So we'll look to hear more about the specific initiatives here in Des Moines and the diocese, preceded by the initiative in the Diocese of Davenport.
Well, we will be right back with Bishop Robert Pipta, Eparchy of Parma, Ohio, and the Byzantine Catholic Outreach of Iowa. For more information on the Byzantine Catholic Outreach, go online to parma.org. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
So, Bishop Pipta, when Father Bruce Reby kind of reached out, made contact with me, he was ahead of me in seminary at the Pontifical College Josephinum in Worthington, Columbus, Ohio, about 3 or 4 years. An interesting path for him as a former sportscaster and everything. But as you said, it was a kind of sacrificial act of love and obedience for him to leave a big parish and to come out to Iowa, where, trying to kind of the frontier, if you will, for the Ruthenian Church. So just maybe as a bishop, express your mindset of whom are you hoping to draw into the fold of your community?
Firstly, of course, my concern needs to be for those who are Byzantine Catholic and are in the area in Iowa, and I must expect my faithful to, because we're so small in number and so spread out, be sacrificial in their willingness to drive, even make drives that are sometimes up to 2 hours one way, or even a little bit more than that has been part of our church reality. So to, see a blessing in the presence of Father Bruce and the community we're developing there at All Saints Church. And I'm grateful to you, Bishop Joensen, for having us.
And to Father Chris Racing, the pastor who's hosting them. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, of course, it is good for all Catholics to have some experience of the reality of the Church breathing with two lungs, Eastern and Western. And for those of your faithful, Bishop, who have never experienced an Eastern Catholic Church, I very much would encourage them to visit, to understand this depth of what the Catholic Church is in different ways that the holy mysteries, or what in the West are called the holy sacraments, are expressed, and the meaning that comes from the prayers and the distinctiveness of ritual and various aspects that make the entire church beautiful.
Yeah, and there is a sublimity to the Divine Liturgy, the kind of, sometimes, it can be a pejorative term, but the repetition was kind of liberating in a way, the triplex, invocations and things, in that sense of mystery. If a person feels, and we only have about 45 seconds left, we're not in competition with each other, but if a person is feeling, this expresses my own personal relationship with God and the community I find here, how would you receive them?
Right, we would never force that person out. Always welcome. If they find a new home in one of our parishes and they think they really might want to make this their spiritual life, even for the rest of their life, talk to the priest. In the case of Iowa, Father Bruce, and talk about the kind of commitment that would mean, and even eventually perhaps a canonical process of transfer of ritual church.
Yeah, and we use the word transfer, not conversion, because we're already in communion with each other, and
yes.
Again, a beautiful thing. Bishop Pipta, thank you for your time. There's so much more could be said.
Yes.
And so as your community continues to get planted and flourish here, it'd be a great occasion both to talk with Father Bruce and yourself. So blessings on your ministry during this holy season.
Thank you very much.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thanks to our guest and to all of our listeners, whether in Iowa or Nebraska, Minnesota, Missouri, wherever you may be, to the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.